Hello everyone. Here we are presenting our exercise 9 of visualization prepared by Roshna Babu, Deval Shah, Abraham Mathew, Neha Joseph and Riya Gajjar. Here I am showing about scenario 1 of Tableau. We will go ahead with the Tableau workbook. Hello everyone. My name is Deval Shah and I am presenting scenario 1 of exercise 9. So here we can see that uh, we have given a data set of Valentine's Day of 2007, and in that data set we can predict some gift for what percentage they have buyed gift, what average have spended, people who people who are buying, or that we can see in the percentages. Then people who are spending for the gifts, we can see an average spend of that from 2007 to 2016. Then we have created a dashboard for gift percentage buying and gift which spend on average. And we have created a people dashboard for people who are spending average values for the gift, and people who are buying gifts for their loved ones. And we can here see the people percent buying who are buying gifts from 2007 to 2016, which kind of peoples are buying their gifts, and which kind of gifts they are buying, like an evening out candy or flowers and jewelry, etc. So and which kind of people who are spending values values for the gifts, that is the net average spend of the decade. We can approximate, like we can say that it's a decade. So and which kind of gifts they have spent it average on so we can see here that 2007, 8 and 9, it was a null value. So no gifts were spent on that year. Then 2007, it was started by 23 percentage an evening out. Then we can see that clothing was spent around 10.93 percentage, which was increased in 2016 by 15 percentage. And we can see that flowers was 14.78 in 2016, and jewelry was the highest in 2015 with the 36.30 percentage. So here it's in a story. We can see that person to gift who are buying gift who are buying people who are buying the gift is shown in the percentage. So it's so we can address that 2007, 8 and 9, there are no gifts which were bought by the people. Then in 2010, we can see that it's 0.35 35% of the people who are buying gifts, right? So it was increased by some around 54.90 above for greeting cards. And when it comes to a jewelry, people are buying around 15.50. And as we can compare with the 2016, we can see that it is around it can see a up and down graph from for the gifts people who are buying. And for the 21 null values are there. And and it shows the like in 2016% who are buying jewelry is around 19.90, which is the highest which is the second highest jewelry which buyed in the 2016. But as we compare to the 2015, jewelry were buyed in 21.10. And as we can see, a percent uh, gift spended average was around 2000. 2007, 8, and 9 was a null, so we cannot explore that. And in 2015, we can see the highest gifts spent was in 36.30%. So it's a huge percentage that people who buy jewelries as compared to all other things. And if we see people's side, though, in 2007, 8, and 2000 till 2016, we can see a graph like it's an increasing graph for the for the children's co-workers, friends, and significant spouse. So highest gifts gifts collected by the significant other or spouse. So we can address that. Children who are buying gifts is around 7. It was in 2007, it was 3.35%, which was increased by 7.08% in 2016. And we can address that in 2007, people who are buying people buying significant or spouse gifts, it was around 80.29%, and which was increased by 89.86% in 2016, which is a 9% increase in the gifts, people who are buying the gifts. And we can see the call to action for that, like people who are buying the gifts for the people who are buying the gifts, and people which kind of gifts people are buying. So it's around 2007 and 8 and 9. There were no gifts which were buyed by the people. And in 2016, it was around 19.50, which was children's who spent money for the gifts. And gifts like it was an evening out. It can be a gift card. It can be a candy. So here we can see that call to action is like people are buying gifts, and um, in which we can see that it's an uh, up and down graph for the gifts. And in people's side, people who spend average value for the gifts, we can see that it was 3.35% who in 2007, that people spend it average for the children spend average values. And in 2016, people children spend 7.08, as you can compare to other. Uh, in 2007, that it was 3.69, like it was increasing and decreasing graph in 2012 and in 2013. So in by 2016, it was 3.74, which is a minute increase as compared to 2007. The people who spend, others who spend average for the gifts, and gift values which were spent on average, like we can see it's a null value from 2007, 8, and 9. And by giving the difference, we can see that in 2010, 23.76 percentage of evening out were sell out. And uh, into the by 2016, it was spent around 33.46%. So we can see the increasing graph here also. And like if we can say about candy, then it's average spend of 8.60%, and it was increased by 13.11%. We can here compare all the data, but we can say flowers. It was in 2010, it was spent around 12.33%, and it was increased in 2014 by 15 percentage. But in 2016, it was decreased by some amount, and it comes to a 14.78% to spend on flowers. And we can see that in 2000, for jewelry in 2010, it was 21.52%, which was increased by 33.11%. But in 2015, it was a huge increase with the 36.30%. So here is my presentation, and thank you so much.
Hello everyone. In the first part of scenario 2, we are discussing how to engage the stakeholders and help them remember the presentation. The main part is the tailored content for the stakeholder and comprehensible language, like no technical jargon should be used in an executive or a management level meeting. The content should be explained with relatable stories and examples to the stakeholder group we are presenting. And it will be easier to remember if we explain it using narratives and visualizations. And structuring of the core message is a very important part, because that's what we finally want to convey to the stakeholders. Also, there should be a structuring of the pacing of the presentation, because we should give them enough time to understand the message, but also you shouldn't give long pause, because they might won't stick to the point and they will start thinking about something else. And along with that, then normal presentation techniques like one message to the point, like all this should apply, but these are the points specific to stakeholder engagement. Now let's discuss the different speaker presenter styles. First one is definition driven. As the name suggests, it's mostly just definition. So there's less input from the speaker, but it's just defining the content. Future driven usually talks mostly about the future. So it's like a project, what is going to be the outcomes. Exaggeration, it's like the way everything is very much exaggerated to get the interest from the audience. In visual driven, the presentation is mainly driven by the PPT slides or dashboards, etc. In stories driven, the content is explained using stories. In build driven style, usually the presenter comes with nothing or a blank like a whiteboard, and then he writes and build up the presentation. In question driven, it's usually a conversation with the audience, so it's a question answer QA sessions. Now discuss the use of body language and visuals. The body language in a presentation includes the facial expressions, body posture, gestures, etc. So this helps in the engaging with the audience, and also it provides a credibility to the presentation based on the body posture. So we can see if the presenter is confident about the topic or not from the body posture. Similarly, visuals like images, charts, dashboards help them to easily understand the content and get them focused on the point. And when you present it, always have to make sure that the visuals are not more important than the presenter. Always the presenter should be the important point. The images and the visuals should be just aiding the presentation. So the last part is where should we explain stories and facts. So the stories are usually can be told in the opening and in the body part. So it's in the opening part to create interest and in the body part to explain the our message in a detailed manner. The facts usually never used in the opening part. It's mainly used in the body part to explain and to give more detail to the core message. Thank you.
Clustering is an important part when it comes to unsupervised learning. It helps to understand the underlying structure of the data. Even though there are no class labels, it will process the data and find the groups if they exist in the data. Next, next is the reinforcement learning, which I already explained. And next is the machine learning algorithms. For the regression, we used linear regression, support vector regression, random forest, decision tree. For classification, naive Bayes, KNN, decision tree, SVM, logistic regression. And for clustering, K-means clustering, principal component analysis, singular value decomposition, hierarchical clustering. Next is the reasons for the failure of machine learning. So here are some points that may cause in a failure of any machine learning application or First is asking the wrong question, then not having the enough data, or maybe not having the right data. Sometimes we have a lot of data sets, maybe we are using wrong tools. Sometimes we use wrong algorithms to predict our data sets. So here are some reasons that is main cause for failure. Next is the frameworks that we use in machine learning. First is the programming languages that we are used in machine learning. Mainly we use Python, R, C++, and some libraries that we are using for our machine learning. Scikit-learn, PyTorch, TensorFlow, Keras, and many more. Next is the scikit-learn library. Scikit-learn is a very simple and efficient tool for data mining and data analysis. It is the most or important one, or the basic one library. It is open source, so no need to pay any extra to use it. We use this library for classification, regression, clustering, and model selection. It is used for statistics modeling and machine learning. Some of the tools include, as discussed, regression, classification, clustering. Next slide. Next one is the Keras. It is the open source deep learning framework for Python. So Keras is a high level deep learning API written in Python for neural networks. It supports multiple backend neural network computations and makes implementing neural network easier. It is a consistent, simple, and extensible API. It supports many platforms. It is highly useful for the computation. Next is the data pipelines. Data pipeline is a sequence of steps in data pre-processing. Sometimes we are when we working on our project, then sometimes we clean, sometimes we do some dropping some columns, or deleting some data, and importing a lot of libraries. So I think it becomes easier when we use the data pipelines to make it more perfect and make it more readable code. So for data pipeline, here is the steps that is actually used for the system. First is importing the data, the pre-processing part, cleaning, EDA, feature extraction, model training, and then predicting the data, and finally the deployment. Next slide. Next is the supervised learning process, how we used supervised learning models. So first we pre-processing the data, importing the libraries, cleaning the data, then training and testing the data. So we split our data set into training and testing models. Then training the model. Here we choose the algorithms that is actually relevant to our training data set. Then estimating the performance of the model. This is about which matrices to use, evaluate the performance, and how to calculate the matrices for example, choosing some particular algorithm and checking the accuracy. Then model tuning and selection. Here we try different parameters and select the best models. For example, if we use 6 or 7 algorithms, then after checking all the accuracy, then we select the best model that is perfect for our project. Next is the multi-layer network. Multi-layer network is when we add one or more inputs to between input and output layers, then it becomes the multi-layer neural network. The layer between input and output called hidden layers, and if we have one hidden layer, then it is the shallow neural network. If we have more than one hidden layer, then it is a deep neural network. Next slide is backpropagation. Backpropagation is the essence of neural network. It is the process of updating the weights of the neural network in order to reduce the error in prediction. It is very fast and simple, easy to program. It has input layer, output layer, hidden layers, and from the output it has a backprop output layer. It is a standard method that generally works well, and it is very flexible. Next is the neural network approaches. First is multi-layer perceptron. So for multi-layer perceptron, we have input layers, output layers, and from input between input and output we have multi-layer perceptrons. Here is some inputs like 74 inputs, 28 by 28. ReLU activation function and softmax activation functions we use. Dense hidden layer with 512 units. Here is the deep neural network. Deep neural network is when we have more hidden layers between input and output layers in neural network. Special types of layer such as dropout, recurrent, convolutional. Next is the second approach, that is the CNN, convolutional neural network. It has 28 by 28 inputs, and in CNN it has particular filters that is used to 3 by 3 matrices, and this basically it uses the RGB colors 0 to 225 to identify the particular inputs. It has a dense layer with 10 units, softmax activation function. So CNN is a deep learning algorithm which can take in an input image, assign importance to various aspects objects in the image, and be able to differentiate one from the other. For example, if we write handwritten 4, then it actually divides some small parts and make it all together to make a actual 4 that is learned by the machine. Next is the word embedding. Word embedding is basically that original words adding some extra synonyms similar to the original words and make another sentence. Here in the image for document 1, Obama speaks to the media in Illinois, and the document 2, the same thing but the different words. For Obama is the president and the reads media, the press. In Illinois it's Chicago. Neural network third approach. Here we have a GRU, gated recurrent unit. GRU is the improvised version of RNN. Basically, RNN suffers from the short-term memory problem. GRU is basically for to remember the important words. It has 2 nodes, update node and the reset node. So here we can see that it 100 cells of GRU layers, and it will danced in the 11 units, and the final output is the 1. Last is the keyword, the caution of the artificial intelligence. Here is the one example, inspire your boat. So inspire your boat is basically generate the inspirational quotes, but it actually make quotes which is not relevant to human existence. Here are some examples, images for the same. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I am Roshna Babu. I am here to discuss about the presentation style of our group and how we would use it to present based on data narrative and visualization to reach outcome. If I say about my way of presentation style, I would say I use visual driven way of presentation more. As we know that visualization helped users focus on information that matters most, see patterns, make connections, and draw conclusions from the data. And data narratives are used to engage pros to relay insights gained through data analysis. So, for drawing best outcomes based on data narrative and data visualization, visual driven presentation is always a good idea. Because in data-driven way of presentation, we uses strong visuals and emotional images for stakeholders to remember both visuals and emotions. And also in our data narrative, we can use powerful images to make stakeholders excited. We have studied different types of presentation styles in last lecture. But when I go through the notes, I understood or like to figure out my way of style as visual driven more. Why? Because is that I believe presentations are not reading the whole content from a PPT, rather giving a clear-cut idea to the audience without making them bored by just reading some notes directly from the PPT. If I do so, what is the benefit of me standing in front of an audience as even they can even read and understand without my help? While doing a presentation, there are chances where we miss to present the whole idea or content. That's why I uses visuals or images that connects my content so that even I can understand the topic as well as the audience also will can easily draw the conclusion of the topic which I meant to convey. Also, everybody can read the text and understood the charts and interact with the data. So next is when to use it. This way of style, that is the visual driven way of presentation, is helpful when speaking to a large audience with a broad interest. If I take an example of the stakeholders, I would say it can be helpful to present to an investors or suppliers, etc. Like investors include both shareholders and debt holders. Shareholders invest capital in the business and expect to earn a certain rate of return on that invested capital. So if we use a visual driven way of presentation, it will be easy for the stakeholders to see the updates in sales, profit and loss by seeing the visuals only. So it will be easy for them, and also it's great when you need to throw a together slides quickly. So that's all about my part. The next part will be taken by Neha. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Neha Joseph, and here we'll be discussing about the last question related to the presentation outcomes topic. And the question is exchange your thoughts with peers from technical, business, management, and executive stakeholder groups to discuss. So, considering the thoughts from technical, business, management, and executive stakeholder groups, we have understood that for a presentation to be outstanding, there are certain things to be followed, and those are the very first thing before the presentation we should be distributing the audience the material that we have or the presentation slides that we have created so that they can go through the presentation or the slides even during the presentation or even after the presentations. And the second thing is we should be prepared to answer the questions that might arise from the audience and which are related to the topic and the presentation. The third point is before the presentation we should be ready, that is we should practice more often so that we'll have a clear idea about what we are going to present, and we could clarify all the doubts that might arise in ourselves to have a better outcome for the presentation. The next thing is use less text on the presentation. That is, uh, considering the point that the presentation should be clean and neat, and the audience should understand everything from the presentation, we should use less text. And also, another thing is we should consider not using long or sophisticated presentations that may cause distraction or confusion to the audience. The next thing is we should get to know the audience before the presentation. That is, we should understand what kind of audience are we presenting the topics or our presentation, so that we'll have an idea about how to present the things and what all things to be told and not to say before or during the presentation. The next thing is to keep the audience interested to the presentation. We should use essential visual insights, but we should also keep in mind that we are not uh, getting away from the vital points, or we are not neglecting the vital points of the topic or the presentation. And finally, we should also consider the fact that we should organize the topics well, so that the presentation will look neat and clean and it is well uh, presented to the audience. And that is all about exercise 9. Thank you.